Good, life has a way of teaching us lessons slowly, sometimes painfully. It took me 52 years to understand a few truths that I wish I had known much earlier. Today, I want to share 9 lessons that might help you live a better, calmer, and more meaningful life. Control what you can, accept what you cannot. This simple principle is the foundation of a calm and steady life, yet it is so rarely practiced. Most of us spend countless hours, days, and even years worrying about things beyond our reach. We fret about what others think, about events that may never happen, about circumstances we have no power to change. And in doing so, we exhaust ourselves mentally and emotionally. The truth is that our energy is precious, and where we place it determines the quality of our life. If we scatter it on things beyond our control, we find frustration and despair. If we focus it on what we can influence, our own choices, actions, and attitudes, we cultivate peace, effectiveness, and resilience. Every day, life presents situations that test this understanding. Traffic jams, delays, unexpected setbacks, these are inevitable. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Illness will come. Yet these external events, by themselves, hold no power over our well-being. The power lies in our response. We cannot dictate the weather, the decisions of others, or the flow of time, but we can dictate our own mindset. We can choose patience instead of irritation, understanding instead of resentment, effort instead of complaint. The moment we realize that our control is limited to ourselves, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. Learning to distinguish between what we can control and what we cannot is not always easy. It requires honest reflection and self-awareness. Our minds are trained, often from childhood, to resist limitations, to feel entitled to have life go according to our wishes. We cling to outcomes, imagining that if only circumstances aligned perfectly, we would be happy. But life rarely aligns perfectly. The wise understand that trying to force reality to match our desires is a source of constant frustration. Instead, they focus on cultivating virtues they can practice daily: kindness, courage, discipline, patience. These are entirely within our grasp. The external world may remain unpredictable, but our character remains under our care. This principle also guides us in decision-making. Before we act, we can ask ourselves, is this something I can influence, or is it outside my control? If it is outside our control, worrying about it is wasted effort. If it is within our control, we can act with diligence and care, knowing that we are doing what is right, regardless of the outcome. This mindset allows us to approach life with calm determination, rather than reactive anxiety. It allows us to embrace challenges as opportunities to practice virtue, instead of seeing them as threats to our comfort. The ability to accept what we cannot change is not passive resignation. It is an active form of wisdom. It is not giving up, it is redirecting energy to where it matters most. A person who has mastered this principle is not tossed by the storms of life. They endure misfortune without bitterness, they face injustice without losing their integrity, and they experience setbacks without despair. They are free because they have disentangled themselves from the illusion that control over external events defines their peace. They understand that life will not always conform to their expectations, but their own mind can remain steady, unshaken, and clear. Time is your most valuable resource, yet most of us treat it as if it were unlimited. We postpone important tasks, delay difficult conversations, and put off self-improvement because we assume there will always be more time. But life is finite, and every day that passes is gone forever. Unlike wealth or possessions, time cannot be regained once it is spent. Every moment carries potential, and how we choose to use it determines the quality and meaning of our life. Yet we often allow distractions, trivial concerns, and endless business to consume our hours. The wise recognize that time is the one resource truly beyond replacement, and they guard it carefully. Consider how often people complain about their lack of time, while simultaneously filling their days with meaningless activity. We scroll endlessly on our devices, attend unnecessary meetings, or chase fleeting pleasures, mistaking motion for progress. We sacrifice hours for things that leave no lasting impact, and then wonder why life feels empty. Time wasted in pursuit of shallow rewards cannot be reclaimed, and the accumulation of such moments quietly shapes a life of regret. Every hour spent on worry, envy, or anger is an hour lost from learning, loving, or creating. The recognition of time's true value brings clarity. It is not enough to simply exist. We must choose how we spend our days with intention. Using time wisely requires discipline and focus. It means prioritizing what matters most: relationships, personal growth, contribution, and experiences that enrich the soul. It requires saying no to distractions, resisting the lure of constant entertainment, and being fully present in the moments we have. Every task we perform, Every choice we make is an investment of time. Once invested, it cannot be withdrawn. Understanding this changes how we act. Small, deliberate actions accumulate into meaningful achievements, while wasted hours accumulate into a life that feels hollow and rushed. Time also reminds us of the inevitability of change. Each day that passes brings us closer to the unknown, whether it is the end of a project, a chapter of life, or life itself. Awareness of our mortality is not meant to frighten us but to awaken us. Life is not a rehearsal, it is happening now. To wait for the perfect moment is a mistake because the perfect moment may never come. The person who truly values time acts with purpose, making each day count rather than deferring their goals indefinitely. They know that action, learning, and connection cannot be postponed without loss. The way we spend our time also shapes our character. A person who squanders hours on trivial matters cultivates habits of distraction and superficiality. A person who spends time intentionally, reflecting, practicing virtue, and contributing meaningfully, cultivates wisdom and resilience. Time is not only a measure of our life but a tool for building the life we wish to live. A mindful awareness of time transforms ordinary routines into opportunities for growth. It turns repetition into discipline and adversity into training. Even small choices, like how we respond to setbacks or whom we listen to, are investments of our limited hours, shaping our future self. Understanding time's value also brings a sense of urgency and humility. We cannot assume tomorrow will be ours, and we cannot rely on others to create meaning for us. Every day we are given a finite portion of this resource, and we must decide how to allocate it with care. Life flows steadily, indifferent to our desires, and only those who recognize the scarcity of time can live with true purpose. Your thoughts shape your reality. It is easy to overlook the power of the mind, because so much of life feels external: people, events, fortune, and misfortune. Yet the mind is the lens through which all experience is filtered, and its perspective determines whether life feels heavy or light, chaotic or calm. Two people can face the same circumstance and respond in entirely different ways, one with despair and the other with composure. This difference is not in the circumstance itself but in the interpretation. Our thoughts have the power to magnify problems or shrink them, to cloud our vision or bring clarity, to create fear or cultivate courage. Understanding this is essential to living a life of peace and strength. Most suffering begins not with what happens but with what we tell ourselves about what happens. A setback, an insult, or a failure is neutral in itself. It is our judgment that turns it into pain. When we react impulsively or emotionally, we give our mind over to external forces, allowing circumstances to dictate our inner state. The wise recognize this trap and instead train their thoughts. They examine assumptions, challenge negative narratives, and choose interpretations that support resilience and growth. By doing so, they take responsibility for their inner world, refusing to surrender it to events beyond their control. The mind is a habit-forming instrument. Repeated thoughts shape patterns of behavior and character. Constant worry, resentment, or self-pity erodes strength and happiness, while repeated focus on reason, gratitude, and self-discipline builds fortitude and peace. Thoughts are like seeds planted in the soil of the mind. They will grow according to care and attention. Neglect or indulgence in destructive thinking allows weeds to take root, but careful cultivation produces a garden that sustains life, joy, and clarity. Learning to observe thoughts without blindly following them is a lifelong practice. It requires patience, self-awareness, and courage to confront the narratives we have accepted unquestioningly. External events are fleeting, unpredictable, and often beyond control. The mind, however, is under our influence. Training it to respond wisely transforms life itself. A person who has mastered their thoughts can remain calm in adversity, resist anger in conflict, and act with purpose amid chaos. Their happiness does not depend on favorable circumstances, but on the steady foundation of reason and perspective. They do not need to manipulate the world to feel secure. They cultivate security within themselves. The ability to shape reality through thought is not an illusion. It is the essence of human agency. This principle also applies to goals and ambition. Success is not only measured by external achievement but by mastery of the self. A person who allows fear, doubt, or envy to dominate their thinking will be held back regardless of opportunity. Conversely, one who directs thought toward constructive action, clarity of purpose, and disciplined effort aligns their inner world with the life they wish to live. Every plan, decision, and relationship is affected by the quality of thought brought to it. Thoughts influence choices, and choices shape destiny. The process is continuous to improve life. First, improve the mind. Awareness of this truth brings freedom. When we recognize that our experience is shaped by our own thinking, we stop blaming circumstances or others for our unhappiness. We stop giving external events the power to disturb our peace. Instead, we exercise judgment, choose perspective, and respond with intentionality. This is not a denial of reality, it is mastery over the way reality is received and acted upon. Each thought becomes an opportunity for growth, a moment to practice discipline, and a chance to align with purpose. The mind is the instrument through which life is experienced, and how it is tuned determines the harmony or discord of existence. Happiness comes from within, not from things. It is a simple truth, yet one that takes a lifetime to fully understand. Most people spend their lives chasing external rewards, money, status, recognition, or possessions, believing that these will bring lasting contentment. We think that when we achieve a certain position, acquire a certain item, or gain approval from others, we will finally feel secure and happy. Yet, the satisfaction from these things is fleeting. A new possession brings excitement only for a short while before desire shifts to the next object. Praise from others may lift the spirits temporarily, but it is fragile and dependent on forces we cannot control. External goods are not inherently bad, but relying on them for happiness is a fragile foundation. True contentment arises from the mind, from how we perceive life and how we choose to respond to it. People often fail to see that circumstances do not define happiness. The same event can bring despair to one person and calm acceptance to another. Wealth may make one person restless and greedy, while it allows another to live simply and generously. Loss may crush one person, while it teaches another the value of gratitude and resilience. Happiness is less about acquiring and more about seeing clearly, about aligning our desires with what is possible and letting go of attachment to what we cannot control. When the mind is trained to understand this, it becomes a source of independence and peace. External events remain unpredictable and beyond our complete influence, but our response to them is our own, and within that lies the source of lasting happiness. Gratitude is central to this understanding. When we focus on what we already have rather than what we lack, the mind finds abundance in simplicity. Health, relationships, the ability to learn, the capacity to act, these are treasures often overlooked. By appreciating them, we reduce the power of external goods over our mood and strengthen our sense of sufficiency. A person who seeks happiness in things external is always at risk of disappointment, because life can remove those things at any moment. A person who seeks happiness within remains steady, because their contentment is not dependent on outside forces. Self-mastery also plays a key role. Happiness is not merely a passive state, but the result of disciplined thought and action. Resentment, envy, and uncontrolled desire disturb the mind and prevent contentment. Anger over misfortune, anxiety about the future, and regret over the past all steal the present moment, yet these emotions are choices of the mind. By cultivating calm judgment, patience, and self-control, the mind protects itself from unnecessary suffering. External conditions may fluctuate, but a person who masters their thoughts is free from the constant tug of circumstance. Happiness is also linked to purpose and virtue. Life feels meaningful when actions are aligned with values, when effort is directed toward growth, kindness, and service rather than self-indulgence. Achievements in line with virtue bring a deeper satisfaction than any material reward, because they reflect the quality of character rather than the whims of fortune. The wise recognize that possessions and accolades may come and go, but the cultivation of virtue and the practice of good judgment endure. By focusing on these internal qualities, a person develops a form of happiness that is resilient, independent, and self-sustaining. The mind, trained to find contentment within, turns every circumstance into an opportunity rather than a threat. Joy does not depend on external favor. It arises from the ability to meet life with clear perception and deliberate choice. The inner state becomes a fortress against misfortune, and a garden of satisfaction and abundance. While life is unpredictable, the mind's orientation toward inner happiness allows one to navigate challenges with composure and appreciation, recognizing that external conditions are not the source of enduring fulfillment, and that lasting contentment is always a matter of perspective. Suffering is part of life. How you respond matters. No one is immune to difficulty. Everyone will face loss, disappointment, illness, betrayal, or failure at some point. These experiences are inevitable, not exceptions. What separates those who endure life with strength from those who collapse under its weight is not the presence of suffering but the response to it. Pain is a fact of existence, but suffering, the prolonged mental anguish that follows, is optional. While we cannot always prevent hardship, we can train ourselves to face it with composure, understanding, and even growth. The difference lies in perspective and discipline. Many people believe suffering comes only from extreme events, but even small frustrations can grow into prolonged misery when we allow them to control the mind. Traffic jams, rude comments, delays, and minor setbacks can trigger anger, impatience, or despair. The mind magnifies these incidents, making them seem larger than they are. The key is awareness, recognizing that external events do not have the power to disturb us unless we grant it. By observing our thoughts, questioning our judgments, and choosing calm responses, we reduce unnecessary suffering. The same external event may devastate one person while leaving another unshaken, not because the event differs, but because the mind is prepared to meet it wisely. Suffering also offers lessons if approached with reflection. Adversity reveals weaknesses, tests values, and exposes attachments that do not serve us. The person who faces hardship thoughtfully can learn resilience, patience, humility, and compassion. A failure at work may teach diligence and foresight. A betrayal may teach discernment and the value of trust. Illness may teach gratitude for health and the body's limitations. Pain, when examined, becomes a teacher rather than a tormentor. The wise understand that to avoid suffering entirely is impossible, but to endure it with understanding transforms it into a source of strength and growth. Control over response is central to this practice. No one can dictate how others act, how fortune turns, or how life unfolds. Yet each person can control how they respond, how they interpret events, what thoughts they entertain, and which actions they take. Resentment, bitterness, and despair arise when people believe they are powerless, when they allow external events to dominate the inner world. By cultivating the ability to choose responses carefully, one maintains agency and avoids becoming a victim of circumstance. Response is the power of the individual, reaction is the surrender to impulse. The wise choose to act with reason, not instinct, and thus reduce suffering that comes from the mind's uncontrolled reactions. Suffering also has a temporal quality. Pain is often intense in the moment, but time diminishes its hold if one does not feed it with regret or anger. By accepting that life includes difficulty, the mind can face it without exaggeration, without imagining it will last forever. Anticipation of future suffering or clinging to past misfortune prolongs misery unnecessarily. The focus must remain on the present, managing what can be managed and accepting what cannot. Through this, suffering loses its ability to dominate thought and emotion. Finally, understanding the universality of suffering brings perspective. No one escapes it, and recognizing this truth fosters humility and empathy. When we see that hardship touches all people in some form, we can approach our own challenges with courage and the suffering of others with compassion. This recognition reduces isolation, resentment, and self-pity, replacing them with acceptance, patience, and understanding. Suffering is inevitable, but its weight and meaning depend on the mind that bears it, and through careful cultivation of thought, perspective, and choice, even the harshest trials can be met with dignity, learning, and quiet strength. Live simply, want less, appreciate more. Life often feels complicated, but much of that complexity is self-imposed. We chase desires endlessly, accumulating possessions, obligations, and expectations that weigh down our days and distract us from what truly matters. In doing so, we trade freedom for convenience, peace for the illusion of security, and contentment for the fleeting thrill of novelty. Simplicity is not about deprivation but about clarity, removing unnecessary distractions, reducing the noise, and focusing on essentials that support a meaningful and calm life. The less we require to feel fulfilled, the more freedom we gain, and the more resilient we become in the face of life's uncertainties. Many people live as if happiness is proportional to accumulation, believing that more wealth, more status, or more possessions will bring satisfaction. Yet, each new acquisition often breeds new desires, new responsibilities, and new anxieties. The mind becomes entangled in a cycle of constant pursuit, rarely stopping to enjoy the present. True satisfaction does not come from abundance of things, but from appreciation of what is sufficient. By learning to want less, we free ourselves from the endless craving that clouds judgment and disturbs the mind. Simplicity allows us to see life clearly, without being blinded by unnecessary attachments or distractions. Living simply also cultivates independence from circumstance. When we rely on fewer things to maintain our happiness, we are less vulnerable to loss or change. A person who needs very little to feel content is not easily shaken by misfortune. Wealth, comfort, and convenience are temporary and unpredictable, but a simple mind finds stability within itself. This does not mean rejecting comfort or effort, but understanding that fulfillment is not an external accumulation. A life of simplicity prioritizes what truly matters: relationships, health, learning, and the exercise of virtue. By reducing dependency on external factors, the mind gains resilience, and life becomes less stressful. Simplicity encourages presence. When the mind is cluttered with desires, worries, and distractions, it cannot fully engage with the moment at hand. By reducing unnecessary wants and focusing on essentials, attention can settle on the present. Meals are more satisfying, conversations more meaningful, and daily tasks more deliberate. Simplicity brings a kind of richness that material abundance cannot provide, because it allows the mind to appreciate life as it is, rather than constantly seeking something else. Gratitude naturally follows, because when we focus on the essentials, the mind notices and values them, creating contentment that does not depend on outside validation. Practicing simplicity also clarifies priorities. It exposes what is truly important and removes what is trivial. By asking what we genuinely need versus what we merely desire, we learn to allocate energy wisely. Many burdens in life are self-inflicted, and by letting go of superfluous wants, obligations, and distractions, we gain more time, more energy, and more peace. Simplicity is a tool for intentional living. It sharpens focus on growth, relationships, and experiences rather than possessions or status. It teaches moderation, self-discipline, and the value of sufficiency over excess. Simplicity also fosters contentment in adversity. Life is unpredictable, and circumstances may strip away comfort or wealth without warning. A simple life, accustomed to needing little, remains steady even when the external world changes. The mind is trained to rely on internal resources, reason, gratitude, patience, and perspective, rather than the fleeting satisfaction of possessions. This inner wealth cannot be lost and provides security against misfortune. By reducing desire and appreciating what is sufficient, life becomes lighter, clearer, and more meaningful. Simplicity transforms ordinary moments into occasions for reflection and gratitude. It trains the mind to value essence over appearance, purpose over accumulation, and resilience over indulgence. The practice of living simply is not a limitation but a liberation, freeing energy, attention, and spirit to focus on what truly matters, and revealing that contentment is always within reach when we let go of unnecessary wants and cherish what we already have. Compare yourself only to who you were yesterday. One of the most common sources of dissatisfaction in life is comparison. People look at others, their wealth, success, appearance, or achievements, and measure themselves against these external standards. This habit is endless because there will always be someone who seems better, faster, stronger, or luckier. By comparing ourselves to others, we give away our peace, allowing someone else's circumstances to dictate our sense of worth. True growth comes not from measuring ourselves against others, but from measuring ourselves against our own past, from observing how we improve, learn, and mature over time. Each person's journey is unique, shaped by experiences, choices, and limitations. Someone else's achievements do not diminish your own potential or progress. By focusing on personal growth, we reclaim control over our sense of satisfaction and achievement. Every day presents an opportunity to do better than yesterday, to make small improvements in character, habits, and actions. The person who compares only to their own previous self develops patience, humility, and consistency. Because success is internal and measured by personal standards rather than by fluctuating external markers, comparison to others often leads to envy, resentment, and distraction. When we focus on what others have, we overlook what we have and what we can achieve. Envy is a poison because it shifts attention outward instead of inward. It ignores the progress already made and magnifies perceived deficiencies. By turning the gaze inward, we cultivate self-awareness and self-mastery. We begin to value incremental improvement, understanding that consistent, small steps lead to meaningful progress. Each challenge overcome, each lesson learned, each habit strengthened becomes evidence of growth, independent of what others are doing. Measuring oneself against personal history also fosters resilience. Life is unpredictable, and circumstances vary widely. Comparing ourselves to others often leads to frustration, because it assumes fairness in a world that is rarely fair. By focusing on our own path, we learn to adapt, persevere, and take responsibility for our choices. Success becomes a matter of effort and character rather than luck or comparison. The past becomes a reference point, a guide to see how far we have come, and where further effort is needed. This perspective reduces despair and cultivates gratitude, because progress is acknowledged even in small measures, and setbacks are seen as part of the journey rather than evidence of failure. Reflection is essential in this practice. Daily or weekly review of actions, choices, and habits allows one to recognize improvement and identify areas for growth. This process is not about harsh judgment, but about honest assessment. The mind trained in self-comparison becomes disciplined and clear. Motivation comes from internal standards, not external validation. Life becomes a personal journey of mastery, and satisfaction comes from effort, persistence, and learning rather than accolades or recognition from others. Comparison to others also distorts perception, because we often see only a fragment of their lives, the achievements and highlights, while ignoring struggles, failures, and sacrifices. The appearance of success can be misleading, and basing our self-worth on such comparisons is unreliable. By looking inward, we base judgment on facts and personal experience. The mind focuses on tangible progress, disciplined effort, and lessons learned, cultivating confidence rooted in reality rather than illusion. Ultimately, comparing yourself only to who you were yesterday allows life to be measured in meaningful terms. Growth, wisdom, and virtue are the true metrics of success. Each day is an opportunity to refine character, strengthen habits, and deepen understanding. The measure of life becomes personal improvement, resilience, and intentional living. By directing attention inward and avoiding the trap of comparison with others, the mind remains free, purposeful, and satisfied, and the journey of life becomes one of continuous growth and self-mastery, where effort and reflection determine fulfillment rather than external circumstance. Let go of anger and grudges. Anger is one of the most destructive emotions because it disturbs the mind and clouds judgment. When we hold on to anger, we give power over our peace to someone else or to circumstances beyond our control. Every insult, slight, or injustice can become a seed of resentment if we nurture it, yet anger rarely changes the situation for the better. It often leads to rash decisions, harsh words, and actions we later regret. The person who understands this learns to release anger quickly, recognizing that holding on to it harms only themselves, while offering little benefit in return. Grudges are anger extended over time. They keep the mind trapped in the past, revisiting offenses repeatedly and imagining scenarios of revenge or fairness. This mental repetition amplifies suffering, making past events feel present and powerful. Life is too short to carry this weight. Each moment spent dwelling on past wrongs is a moment lost from living fully. Letting go does not mean forgetting or excusing wrongdoing. It means refusing to allow the offense to dominate your thoughts, dictate your emotions, or shape your actions. It is a deliberate act of self-liberation. Anger and grudges distort perception. They make small slights appear larger and exaggerate the faults of others. When the mind is clouded by resentment, we often interpret neutral actions as hostile and innocent mistakes as intentional harm. This creates a cycle of bitterness that feeds on itself. By releasing anger, we see the world more clearly, recognizing that most offenses are neither as intentional nor as catastrophic as they appear. Clarity allows reason to guide responses rather than impulsive emotion. It allows calm judgment to prevail, and the mind becomes a tool for understanding and action, rather than a battlefield of emotion. Forgiveness, or at least the act of letting go, is essential to peace of mind. This does not require reconciliation or condoning harmful behavior, but it does require the choice to prioritize one's own tranquility over imagined justice or revenge. By releasing resentment, we reclaim energy and focus. The time spent plotting or ruminating could instead be devoted to growth, creativity, or connection. The person who lets go understands that their own life is too valuable to be consumed by the faults of others. Anger drains vitality and clouds the path forward, while release restores clarity and freedom. Holding on to anger also affects health, relationships, and decisions. Chronic anger increases stress, reduces patience, and weakens judgment. It can harm relationships by creating unnecessary conflict and tension. It can prevent learning from mistakes by fostering defensiveness and rigidity. Letting go allows reflection, learning, and reconciliation where possible. It allows one to engage with life calmly, to act thoughtfully rather than reactively, and to maintain relationships with honesty, fairness, and kindness. The mind trained in release of anger remains composed, even when provoked, and choices are made with clarity rather than emotion. Understanding that everyone acts according to their own limitations and perceptions helps in releasing anger. People hurt others out of ignorance, fear, selfishness, or weakness. Recognizing this does not excuse harmful behavior, but it frames it in a broader perspective, reducing personal offense. When we see that offense is often unintentional or a product of circumstance, anger loses its grip. The mind can respond rationally rather than emotionally, addressing wrongs when necessary, but without being consumed by resentment. Letting go of anger and grudges is a practice of self-mastery. It strengthens the mind, protects the heart, and frees energy for what truly matters: growth, learning, relationships, and meaningful action. Each instance of release reinforces inner strength, teaching that peace is found not in controlling others but in mastering oneself. Anger and grudges are burdens. By setting them down, the mind gains freedom, the heart gains calm, and life becomes less about retribution and more about deliberate, thoughtful, and purposeful living.